Well, I'm here with George Christensen. We are at the Church and State Summit in Brisbane. It's the 7th annual Church and State Summit. Now, George, you're a former federal MP. You were one of the good ones, if I may say so myself.
Thank you very much.
You stepped away from that. I don't know if you want to talk about that, because that was a bit of a thing in its own right. But what brings someone like yourself? You've been in the halls of power before. Why would you come to something like a Church and State conference?
Well, mate, I think it's important. I mean, I'm first and foremost a Christian, and if you believe in Christianity, you believe in the Lord's Prayer. You believe in a key phrase in the Lord's Prayer. Oh, we're going to get someone walking from us.
Sorry, we're in a busy, highly trafficked area. You're just going to have to put up with it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So you believe in the Lord's Prayer, which actually says, thy will be done on earth as in heaven.
Sure.
So if you believe that, as I do, then we've got to try and make some of God's laws apparent here on earth.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean establishing a theocracy, but
Sure.
it means biblical ethics, biblical values in the way we go about government.
I think in particular, it's often, people look at the Ten Commandments and they say, oh, well, there's a lot of those laws that shouldn't apply today. Well, there's some of them that definitely should. And in theology, we see this idea of the two tablets. There are the tablets that concern our relationship with God. And we know in the New Testament that's an individual thing. But there are the tablets, there are the instructions that relate to our interactions with each other. And those really, when we talk about Christian ethics, we're really talking about, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and these sorts of ideas that unfortunately, we're seeing increasingly in society now, particularly if you look at the US, people are just openly, brazenly stealing and walking out with things. And we're being told that we're not allowed to think that that's wrong anymore.
That's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, look, the Ten Commandments are actually the system that established law in fact most of the legal systems in many countries actually derive from the Ten Commandments. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's this sort of push to do away with all sorts of things at the moment, and one of those is, as you say, thou shalt not steal. That's openly happening in many places in America. You're not allowed to touch them. Ridiculous. And this is what you get when a society starts to crumble. And I think that there is something to be said about all of that, actually, that's a bit more deeper. Western civilization, Topher, was tethered to Christianity. We didn't call it Christendom without a reason.
Yeah.
And so now it's been untethered, and that's been the case now probably since the French Revolution.
Okay.
It's been in the Enlightenment. It's been slowly and slowly coming to this point that we're at today, where it's moved from post-Christian to anti-Christian. But that mooring has been lost, and I think that Western civilization is now adrift. It doesn't know what it's about, and when you're a civilization that actually doesn't understand, doesn't know what it's about, you are doomed to decline. And I don't know there's actually arresting that. Now that's my position. A lot of people have different views on it. I think that we are in civilizational decline. It will eventually happen. We don't even recognise it at the moment. Who does when they're in decline? I do fear for my child and perhaps grandchildren, and I hope, though, that the foundations that the remnant can leave will ensure that there is a good civilization that's going to spring up from here.
I suspect I'm a little more optimistic than you are in terms of where this all could lead. But I put it to you, people talk about we're a post-Christian society, we're a secular society now, we have a secular government. I think maybe that was true for a few decades, but I actually don't think that's true anymore. I think there is a new state religion that has crept in. Well, wokeism is one expression of it, but we see it in so many different ways. We see it in actually the worship of government itself. So you've been in Canberra, you've been in the halls of power, you've seen the inner workings and sort of seen behind the curtain, so to speak. What's the reality of government? Should we be entrusting these people and these institutions with the kind of absolute power that we are now giving them?
Absolutely not. That's the short response to it. I mean, look, people who go into positions of power, myself included, have a little thing called ego. And,
everybody does, not just the ones that go into power. We all do. I'm guilty.
But especially those who go into power. What do they say? That politics is show business for ugly people. But anyway.
Present company excluded, of course.
But the fact is that, when you've got people with massive egos, not just on the front line of politics, but even in the background, people with what I call little Hitler syndromes, tin pot dictator syndromes, trying to control things, it is a recipe for disaster for liberty. And, that is why we should try to limit government as much as possible and keep our personal freedoms intact.
Sure.
But yes, I think that it is right to say that there is a new state religion. The state religion is all about centralising power, all about government knows best, all about this concept that mankind can create its own heaven. Mankind can create a utopian society. Every bloody attempt at creating a utopian society has failed miserably, ended up with death, disaster and mayhem. And, forever it will be the same.
But funnily enough, the only historical example that I can think of that might counteract that point that you've made is actually the establishment of the American Republic. I mean, the French Revolution, that was an attempt to create heaven on earth. That became hell on earth. Marxism became hell on earth. The one potential exception, and it's not a great example now, I mean, let's be honest, the American Republic is not doing well right now. But it could be argued that for quite some time they really did create, and I mean, certainly the most prosperous, but I would say for quite some time the freest nation on earth. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what was the difference there? What made that a success?
The difference was the linchpin of the whole thing was liberty, particularly religious liberty.
Right.
And instilling as much personal liberty in that whole experiment as they could, and limiting government. I mean, there were, founding fathers, the United States, I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin, but I may have the wrong person there, who said something of the kind of, talking about King George and saying what we don't want to do is replace one tyrant over there for 1,000 tyrants here in terms of having representative government.
Yeah.
So, there's something from the get-go that was all about religious liberty, personal freedom. And when you have a state based on that, yes, it's going to be good. But, eventually it just declines. And the United States is in rapid decline right now. Again, I think we're going to see President Trump back later this year, or when he's inaugurated next year. But even that is probably not going to change things for America in the long run.
Well, if you look at his first 4 years, he pushed through mandates for the untested vaccines. He was certainly a fan of lockdowns at the time, and he drove up their debt considerably. So whatever the good things may be, the fundamental underlying issue is that, yes, he's going to continue in broadly the same direction. Last question for you. There'd be people who would look at a conference like Church and State and say, well, there's nothing to talk about. The church is the church, the state is the state, and never the twain shall meet. What's the interaction here? Where do these things intersect?
Well, I think that there is a concern amongst Christian people about the direction, particularly in relation to social issues, right? And we, to a large extent, have accepted the fact that we have, I hate to say it, but we, some of us anyway, accept the fact that we've lost the culture war on big issues like gay marriage, abortion. I hope and pray that there is a turning around, particularly on the abortion issue. But let me just say that what's happening is we're moving now beyond that to the point where you cannot express or have an opinion that is contrary to this, to the victorious in the culture wars. And that is the danger. That then goes from being something that's external to me, to being, affecting my personal freedom, where I can't say, write, or even think about something that's contrary to a state-held belief.
It's a return of blasphemy.
It is. This is why that analogy that there is a state religion, and I call it wokery, that it is a religion. It is a faith, because now, I have a good friend over in Germany, who's one of my work colleagues, Edward Proles. He just in the last 2 weeks fronted court, charged with blasphemy, but pretty much, but it wasn't called blasphemy, a hate crime. He posted a meme. That actually was having a dig at pedophilia, right? But talking about how some pedophiles hide behind the LGBTIQ movement, right? Sure. So this was the meme. It had the Trojan horse, rainbow colours, and pedophiles inside it. For that, he was found guilty by a German court of a hate crime, or for incitement of people to hatred against LGBTIQ people. Now, goodness me, can't we express ideas anymore? Can't we express thoughts anymore? I mean, there is no such thing really as group rights. There's individual rights, and that is it.
Yeah.
And this idea that there's group rights is another part of the religion, the state religion that's currently going on.
Well, it's going to be interesting times ahead. I'm more optimistic than you. I guess as time passes, we're going to have to wait and see. I do think that there is.
You say, I don't think everything's broken, Topher. I think that I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be saying continue to fight.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, though, that civilization will continue to decline, but that means that doesn't mean that we just abandon the fight and walk away right now. We need to protect our own individual freedoms and the freedoms of our children.
And also just be faithful in the fight.
Yeah.
The battle is the Lord's, the outcome is the Lord's, but we're still called to be in it and be faithful in that. Well, George Christensen, thank you so much for speaking with us here at the Aussie Wire.